Hello again, everyone. It's MrMostDaysOff from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, reminding you to check out popthreads.com for all of your pop culture t-shirt needs. And right now, you can save 15% at checkout just by using the discount code Simpsons at checkout. It helps out the show, it saves you some money, it's all good. Thank you so much for listening to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and thank you so much for supporting us by shopping at popthreads.com. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and joining me once again, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm Riggedy Rex, son. Not really, though. I'm excited to be here. I'm not gonna lie, the episode we're gonna be reviewing today, for some reason in my mind, I always thought it was like a Season 2 episode, maybe Season 3. But when I saw it was coming up, I was like, oh yeah, this is all the way in Season 4. And I'll admit, I thought the animation was going to look a lot shittier, but it actually looked pretty crisp. And it looked a little better, and it played a lot better than I remembered it. But we will be getting right into that. I'll throw it back to you for now. The man, the myth, the Miss Sinclair. It is Miles.
I was fully expecting you to go the Miss American Girl there. Honestly, that in my head, that's just what I was expecting. But Miss Sinclair works. That's a good dig. I
didn't realize till just now, and they may say it in the episode, but did he say like the babysitter that's my sister? Because they have the same. Him and the director and Miss Sinclair have the same last name. I just realized.
And they also have a very, very similar voice for some reason. Yeah, I think that it was implied that they were related, honestly, but I don't know if it was made clear or not.
But everyone has no idea what we're talking about because we haven't even revealed the episode.
We haven't even got to this episode. We are talking about a Streetcar Named Marge today, which debuted on October 1st, 1992. The chalkboard gag for this one was, "My name is not Dr. Death," as in Dr. Death Steve Williams for you wrestling fans out there. And the couch gag on this one, the couch turned into some sort of octopus hybrid couch monster and devoured the Simpsons whole. Even Maggie, which surprised me, she usually survives these incidents.
I figure since it's swallowed whole, though, I mean, you want Maggie with you if she's got some kind of superpower.
It'll be some sort of Jonah and the Whale type of situation, just inside of a couch octopus instead of a whale, and with less Jesus.
Or it's less about the monster, but who controls the monster.
Oh, interesting. Maybe this is a Twilight Zone type of thing where Maggie just did this herself, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I dig that.
Think outside the box on this show.
If you cannot tell by the title of this episode, A Streetcar Named Marge, this is going to be somewhat of a spoof or a parody or derivative in some way of A Streetcar Named Desire. A very popular play from the 1940s that also was made into a movie in 1951 with
Marlon Brando.
Yeah. Rich, I know you were a theater guy back in high school. How familiar are you with the play, or the movie even, A Streetcar Named Desire?
All my familiarity with this production is through The Simpsons, honestly. When I was in theater, we never really talked about this one. Like, it might have been brought up once or twice, just honestly to talk about Brando more often than not. But besides that, it's not a lot of familiarity with it. But after watching this as a child, I feel like you get a good grasp on the story with the musical number that we get from The Simpsons here.
You know, it does a pretty good job. However, I think there's a good reason you didn't touch base with this one in high school. This story is dark as fuck.
Yeah.
Prior to doing some research on this, I was like you. I only had knowledge of what this play was about from The Simpsons. But being the dedicated podcast host that I am, I gave this episode the research it deserved. And I dove deep, reading a Wikipedia page all about A Streetcar Named Desire. So I'm pretty much an expert, is what I'm trying to say.
Especially when the space aliens show up.
Especially when the aliens show up in the third act. That's right. So again, the spoof is pretty straight, and their version, by the way, is called "Oh Streetcar." If you didn't catch that, it's not A Streetcar Named Desire. I'll tell a fun story about that later, but I just want to talk about how dark this story is, because Blanche in the play does in fact move to New Orleans from Mississippi, but it turns out she has a little bit of a troubled past, and essentially She gets into it. She stays with her sister and her husband, and that's Ned Flanders' character in The Simpsons, Stanley, I believe. And Stanley is basically a total dick to her. To be fair, she's kind of a little bit rude, but he's just a complete ass. And he actually, at one point, it's even implied that Stanley rapes Blanche. So that's one act of this thing. That's one reason you didn't do the play in high school, is they usually avoid the topic of rape. But in addition to that, we find out that Blanche was fired from her job as a teacher and had to move to New Orleans to be with her sister, not by choice, but because she got caught fucking one of her students.
Oh, damn.
Which I think is what was the song that I know you are a big fan of with a poo. Yeah. I believe that's what that's actually
that makes a lot more sense.
In the Simpsons version.
It makes a lot more sense now. And for the record, there were high schools that did plays with sex in them where they literally had the sex happen on stage. We used to hear about it all the time, and I think I might have seen part of it once where they would put like a white scrim in front of the actors, and you'd see their silhouettes behind it. So there were some high schools that tried to stretch the boundaries. They did get in trouble from that, for what I remember.
I now regret more than ever my choice of athletics over theater. Stupid Miles. Anyway, we've gotten way ahead of ourselves, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the darkness of that play, because I'll be honest, it changed my perception of the episode in a bit of a positive way, because I like the way that The Simpsons was able to once again take a very dark situation and just Simpsonize the shit out of it.
Turn into a musical.
And make it awesome. Oh man, when we get to the end, I love that last musical number, but we'll talk about that when we get there. This episode actually opens up in the Simpsons' living room with Homer and the kids watching the Miss American Girl pageant. Marge comes in to let them know that she's actually going to be auditioning at the local theater. There's a lot of quick visual gags in this episode right off the bat. There's one with Krusty the Clown with it's Krusty the Clown brand Slender Vittles, which is essentially like a lean cuisine, but for Krusty. I thought that was hilarious. And then they do a bunch of stuff with the various girls, the contestants on the Miss American Girl pageant, representing their state. And like one of the girls comes out with like a headpiece that looks like Mount Rushmore. Who was it that came out as a giant cigarette? Where are cigarettes made? Where's Philip Morris located?
I don't know.
It was the second state, but then Indianapolis had a racetrack going around the girls.
What I wanted to bring up was the fact that Lisa seemed very captivated by this thing, and we know in another 2 episodes she's actually going to enter Little Miss Springfield pageant, right? Like I think that's the name of the pageant. But we've got the one where she's going to be a beauty queen coming up here in a few episodes.
Lisa the beauty queen, yes sir, yes sir.
So maybe this is like the first, we've noticed that they have little hints almost of very soon to come episodes. So maybe this is one of those moments.
Yeah, I love when we catch these little moments of foreshadowing, and I like to assume that they did it intentionally. They have this little bit where they're introducing the judges, and I think they did a little Bart joke just for the sake of being edgy, but I totally support that. They introduce a panel of judges for the Miss American Girl pageant, and I didn't recognize any of the names except for token black judge Dedrick Tatum. However, they did a little jab at the guy who does the list for the worst dressed people on the red carpet. And I love Bart just has a real quick response when they introduce him. Bart's like, what a bitch.
Yeah. What I liked was it Troy McClure doing the announcing on that? It sounded like Phil Hartman almost. I'm not quite sure. But
it was. Phil Hartman's name popped up in the credits, and it was definitely him.
Well, Lionel Hutz is in the episode, too.
I watched with the commentary, and they noted that he did both voices.
Okay, awesome. Well, when Phil Hartman's announcing the show towards the beginning, he says, if you ask me, they're all winners. We'll be cutting the next 40 contestants in a few minutes. And there's only 50 of them there, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like that too.
He does so much with such little lines.
Yeah, his moment there, I mean, he had less than, 15 seconds of airtime, and he killed it with that. While the kids and Homer are enjoying the show, Marge is trying to get ready for her play, and all she gets in return is Homer yelling at her to keep it down while she's trying to practice her songs.
Yeah, but I mean, when you hear her practicing, you understand why Homer's like, keep it down. This is like a Penny in Big Bang Theory when she's going to go audition to be a singer, except it's worse because it's Marge's raspy voice doing it, so...
It's kind of fun to hear Marge sing, though. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. You definitely have a point that it's not classically beautiful, But there's just something so fun hearing that come out of our character that we know so well that usually, murmurs for the most part. I thought it was neat.
You sound like Llewellyn Sinclair. That's the entire reason he cast her. It's for that raspy rawness.
Well, maybe I have vision, Richie. Have you ever thought of that?
You have vision? Oh. Look out, world.
Here I come. When Marge is actually taking off to go to the audition, Homer kind of grills her, saying, "Where are you going?" And she's like, "Homer, I'm going to the audition I told you about."
Like 4 times.
Only Homer claims that she never mentioned it, and even the kids back him up, saying, "No, Mom, I don't think you ever said that," which just shows how much Marge deals with on a day-to-day basis, and how intoxicating that television is on that whole family.
That's more what it is. Did you notice that Maggie had a little magical moment here where she was playing the xylophone?
She knows that song already, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of fun Maggie things to talk about when we get a little bit deeper into this episode. I'm excited to... We haven't had any really great Maggie moments lately, and this episode has a lot of them.
When this idea first was put upon us by Andy, this is the episode I thought about because of all the shit that happens with her in this episode.
It's a very strong Maggie episode, definitely. Marge arrives at the auditions for O Streetcar, which, by the way, one note on the O Streetcar. The Simpsons, I learned this on the commentary, the Simpsons had a great relationship with their lawyers, and they actually had lawyers that always wanted to help push them towards making the best content they could, including doing this idea. This parody was actually 2 years in the making because it was so complex and it took a lot of hammering details out. And it's a very frenetic episode for a 22-minute cartoon. So much happens that it took a lot of planning. And one of the things that they were concerned about was the legal issues that they would have of using a streetcar named Desire. That's one of the reasons that the play they do is called O Streetcar, and also why the Simpsons wrote all original songs that kind of paraphrase what happens in A Streetcar Named Desire without actually ever stealing any of the song or even using any of the songs. They do use a couple of the lines from the play, but it's able to, because they're singing it, and it puts it into the category of parody, is what I'm trying to say.
Man, I can see that. It's, again, you referenced this earlier, we've referenced it before. I was in theater throughout high school, and when we got to the junior, senior years, our drama teacher started showing us, like, this is our budget for the semester, we've got these 3 plays we're doing, this is the budget for each show, and like when you did musicals, you had to have a bigger budget because you have to pay for the rights just to be able to perform the show. So that's where they make all their money at as a playwright. So like it's ridiculous how much money you're paying just to be able to go up on stage and sing these songs that somebody wrote about. Like it's crazy. So if there's a loophole where you can change some words here and there or change the title just so you can parody it, that's going to save you a ton of money.
Well, yeah, because I think parody falls under fair use, so it's able to get away without having to pay those fees.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was really cool that the lawyer was the one. He actually told Al Jean and Mike Reese that he would fight this to the Supreme Court for them if he had to. Wow. That's how confident he was. That's how much he wanted this episode to be made. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
I also got a laugh out of a couple things at the auditions, namely Jasper, super flexible for an old man, and Ned Flanders also admitted to being in a streetcar before. He actually played Blanche at his all-boys school.
Good old Flanders.
And this is where we meet the first character that Jon Lovitz will be playing in this episode. He is the very passionate director, looking to make the best play he can. Sometimes he's known for being a little bit too harsh. He may have been a little harsh on his last cast, a group of 4th graders. But when he got the results, play enjoyed by all, Richie, I think it might be worth it.
Did I expect too much from 4th graders? The review, play enjoyed by all, speaks for itself.
Then I think that joke only works, or at least it works 10 times better, because Jon Lovitz's delivery is just perfect with his character. He has that way about being able to just be like snooty in this hilarious way. I love Jon Lovitz.
He's like overconfident for something so small that doesn't require confidence. I don't know how a better way to put it, but I will give him credit. Very much reminded me of more than one of my drama teachers throughout my life. So he over-exaggerated the idea of a drama teacher, and it makes it work so beautifully in this. Like, again, I don't remember really liking this episode so much when I was younger because it came on a lot. But watching it today, with our knowledge that we have now, it's like I very much enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But he nails the drama teacher, Llewellyn Sinclair.
Well, wow, Llewellyn Sinclair, that's worse than a boy named Sue, first of all. But Llewellyn is great in this episode, but he is demanding. He actually first casts Stanley, which all he does is has everybody who's auditioning take off their shirts. And good lord, Flanders is ripped. He pulled a groundskeeper Willie here, where he looks totally normal until he pulls off his shirt, and then he's got like a six-pack and pecs.
And remember, he's a senior citizen, we'll find out in a few years too, so...
Oh yeah, I forgot. He's like way older than Homer.
He's like 65, I think. I forgot what it actually is, but he's in the 60s.
But nobody impresses Sinclair when it comes to playing Blanche. No one's able to identify or connect with that sense of depravity, being beaten down by another man, somebody that just is showing weakness as she's held under the thumb of somebody. That's when he sees Marge talking to Homer on the phone. She tells him he was right. Doing things outside the house is stupid. I failed miserably. And yes, I'll get a bucket of fried chicken on the way home. With extra skin. And some rolls. And some chocolate pudding. At that point, the director walks over. He grabs the phone and tells him to quit talking to his Blanche like that. And hangs up the phone on Homer. He has found his cast.
And it's a good little moment because it establishes that Homer is the trigger in this episode for Marge's Blanche.
Yeah, it's the first it's the first real sign. I guess the opening of the episode too, but yeah, definitely this is another one of those episodes where you just kind of scratch your head and go like, "Oh my god, how does Marge keep Homer?" Honestly, like it really does make you wonder. Even with the wrap up at the end on this one, it just doesn't even know. It almost doesn't feel like enough to absolve him of all of the things that she has noticed that he did to her this episode, but we'll get there. We'll get
into that because we might disagree a little bit on that part.
Fair enough. Well, there's one problem now that Marge has got the lead role in the play. What are they going to do with Maggie? They're going to have to put her into the Ayn Rand Daycare Center. And this is the first of many, many, many Ayn Rand references that we're going to get in this episode. I'm honestly not 100% sure what they're going for. However, I will say that I think this is just jokes upon jokes, and to the point where I'm guessing the writers must have just been getting giddy and having just a bunch of laughs, because Ayn Rand, we'll get into some more of the references here soon, but Ayn Rand, in addition to being an influential voice for people like the Libertarian Party with some of her philosophies, she was very opposed to altruism and, was very much a individualist type of person. That's why we see some of the signs later, like helping is futile. And the other poster is actually a reference to one of her books. One other fun fact about Ayn Rand is that she absolutely hated. She outspokenly said that Tennessee Williams was the worst playwright she's ever known. And guess what play Tennessee Williams wrote?
Streetcar Named Desire.
A Streetcar Named Desire. So jokes upon jokes upon jokes just layered into this episode. Both visual gags and even these just really odd, just weird little connections that they do.
Shoot, my first on-stage kiss, so to speak, was when I was a sophomore in high school doing a Tennessee Williams play, The Glass Menagerie. So, them's fighting words.
Them is fighting words. The daycare employee, what is it? The daycare owner? What is she?
The daycare CEO? I was just going to say the chick that runs the daycare? The overseer, we'll call her.
The chick that runs the daycare is, in fact, John Lovitz again. It's I think it might be the sister, because her last name was also Sinclair.
It was MS, which means it's Ms. So they're not married, so it'd have to be the sister. There's no other, unless it was like the mom, but it's the same age looking, so I'd say sister.
Yeah. But this is definitely not going to be the nurturing style of daycare that Marge is used to. But it is the only daycare in the area not currently under investigation by the state. So I guess it'll have to do.
What I liked is I think there was a night at home around when they were talking about the play before the next day where she takes Maggie to daycare. I liked when Bart asked, are there any jive-talking robots in the play? And Homer's like,
no, I don't think so, hon.
Homer was like,
don't ask stupid questions.
Right before he asked a stupid question.
Hey, is there nudity in it is not a stupid question, sir. That's an important thing to know before having to go sit through 2 hours of musical.
I don't know any musical that has nudity in it, playwright-wise.
Moulin Rouge, right?
I said playwright-wise. That's why I said, like, that was a written play that wasn't turned into a movie.
Was Moulin Rouge not a play before it was a movie?
But I'm saying, like, I don't believe there's nudity called for in the original script. That's something they do for the movie to get people to come see it.
I'll do some investigative work on that here later.
Was there an actual nudity in Moulin Rouge? I thought that was PG-13.
I've never seen the movie, but I don't know. I just know it's about a burlesque show, essentially.
Yeah. It's actually a really good movie, man.
I don't like musicals, dude.
Yeah.
I can't get into them. I don't know. Something about people singing their actions just really annoys me. Except for, I love it when they do it in TV shows on The Simpsons and whatnot. That's totally fine. We've got Monorail coming up. Can't wait for that. But just something about movies, it just bothers me. Don't know what that is.
I'll admit, I get turned off from going to see musicals a lot when it's an actual movie I'm paying to go see it. Like, if it's on stage, that's one thing.
I totally agree. I would go see a play that's a musical, totally different thing. But movies, it's just not my scene.
Yeah, everyone loves Chicago, and I got bored watching Chicago. And I think there was like a high school party where a bunch of people were hanging out, and someone started Moulin Rouge, and I was like, ugh. But then we watched it, and I was like, oh wow, Ewan McGregor can fucking sing.
Ewan McGregor was just in Beauty and the Beast. He was the candlestick dude. And another example, I went and saw that movie with my wife, and I thought that was all right. I saw the original Beauty and the Beast when I was a kid, once. So I didn't know. Honestly, about halfway through, I had to ask Emily, hey, is this shot for shot remake? And she was like, yeah, pretty much. But the only song I recognized was Be Our Guest. And I also really enjoyed that sequence, but I realized Be Our Guest didn't really actually progress dialogue. What drives me crazy is a scene where, for instance, Belle and the Beast would be sitting there singing what they're thinking across the table from one another, and I'm just like, why in the fuck can't they hear each other then?
So when Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, that must drive you crazy.
I love that shit, dude. I will fully admit that I believe in double standards. Whatever I happen to be towards is the right answer in my mind. It's a double standard, and I'm fine with that.
You heard it here first. He may never admit that again as a double standard.
Exactly. You nailed it. One other thing before we move on from this daycare center is I was really worried for this chick's life because, as we know, Magical Maggie has the ability to do what she wants, and she wants that pacifier, and Miss Sinclair takes it from her. And talk about fighting.
She sealed her fate. When she took that pacifier, she sealed her fate. Maggie could have put up with it. Maggie could have put up with it from the get-go, but when you took that pacifier, you're done. You're done.
Unfortunately, Llewellyn Sinclair, the director, is having a hard time getting the passion he wants out of Marge. He's not bringing the anger to Blanche that's needed for this character.
If you set out to push the bile to the tip of my tongue, or tip of my throat, mission accomplished.
I also like when Flanders is like, hey, I don't want to be an armchair Blanche here, but when I did that, I would smash the bottle like this. Marge is struggling with this issue back in bed with Homer. She's trying to go over some lines and get it down right, but Homer can't be bothered because he is gaming on what looks to be a Game Boy, even though on the screen of the Game Boy itself it actually says Bowling 2000. I think that they intended that to be the cartridge in the Game Boy.
I wish he was playing a Simpsons game.
That would have been meta and really fun. I like how Homer basically gripes at Marge, saying, see, Marge, you're so wrapped up in your own world, you can't see that other people are having problems too, right after he bowls a gutter ball on his video game.
To be fair, yeah, she's not recognizing what's going on with Maggie, so there is a little bit of truth to that.
And Maggie is already going through withdrawals of her passy. She's trying to find random objects to make do. She has a block and something else, but one of the items she actually picks up is a Bart Simpson doll. She just very briefly uses it as her pacifier, but that also doesn't do the trick.
I like when Miss Sinclair was talking to Marge before she puts Maggie in there, and so do you know what a baby is saying when she reaches for a bottle? And Marge says, "Baba." She's saying, "I am a leech. Our aim here is to is to develop the bottle within.
That sounds awfully cruel.
Yeah.
But already Maggie's showing some signs that she's got some sort of power, be it just extra charismatic baby or magic. Who knows? We'll find out. But she actually riles up the troops, as in the other babies, to work together to retrieve those pacifiers. They actually build a stack of toys that allows Maggie to get up to the locker that she saw them put them in, but the pacifiers won't fit through the slots, and the locker is in fact locked.
And being a true Simpson, a selfish Simpson, she sucks on the pacifier through the hole anyways.
Well, and then the toys actually tumble out from beneath her, and she's able to hang on by just the suction of the pacifier for just a little while. She does eventually drop, and that's when Miss Sinclair walks in and catches Maggie red-handed. The other two babies that were helping her fled away, and she was basically the only one caught, and she was put into a pen where we get this great scene.
Solitary.
Where she's throwing a ball up against the side of the crib, and this is actually a reference to Steve McQueen, which is not the first or the last Steve McQueen reference we'll see in The Simpsons.
Yeah, the whole music that plays every time she's doing something is the direct reference of that as well.
The Getaway.
The Great Escape.
The Great Escape, yeah, thank you. The Great Escape. You're absolutely right. They have the rights to that song, and they use the shit out of it in this episode. That
was my first reference as a kid to The Great Escape, was this episode and the song in particular, where my dad was like, oh my gosh, that's from The Great Escape. And then he kept talking about the movie throughout the episode to me.
During this sequence was actually when we saw those posters I referred to as well, with the A's for A and the helping is futile, as well as Miss Sinclair's actually reading a book called The Fountainhead Diet, which The Fountainhead is one of the novels that Ayn Rand is most known for. I also want to point out with the Ayn Rand Society actually contacted The Simpsons after this episode aired. They mentioned that they loved the episode and they thought it was funny, but they wanted to know if they were being made fun of or not.
If you can't find the dumbest one at the table, it usually means it's you.
To be fair, it's hard to tell if they're like poking fun or what exactly, because there's just so, I think, like I said, I honestly think the writers just got out of hand with themselves,
but think
throwing
about
in a bunch of references.
She's reading the book while Maggie's literally trying to liberate the pacifier.
Right. The whole sequence is fantastic.
That's great.
The next day at auditions, Marge is still struggling with why Blanche would get so upset with Stanley. Marge just can't understand why Blanche can't take the abuse with genuine good humor.
Is that a knock at rape right there?
Like I said, there was implied rape in the original play, so it very well could be.
Gosh.
Just in time, selfish Homer shows up to save the day, as the director is telling Marge that she should be so upset with Stanley because of how thoughtless, vile, and loud he is towards her.
Marge!
Homer comes in, and of course he is thoughtless, vile, and loud, and at this time, Marge is able to find her inspiration.
I really like the way they set that last bit up, though, where it's literally Llewellyn talking to Marge face to face, but there's a little gap between them, and you can see Homer at like the snack machine in the background, hitting it and being loud, and like literally I remember that as well as being a kid, thinking like, wow, the spacing and the way they put that together, it's obvious, but like it's still clever.
Exactly, like as the conversation is happening, Homer is demonstrating these terrible qualities he has.
Marge puts up
in
with
the
all the
background
time
of the
and doesn't
scene.
realize.
He actually interrupts the auditions to ask for change for the snack machine, and Llewellyn's so pissed he actually throws change on the ground, and Homer's just really excited because there's some quarters in
there.
there.
A quarter!
But yeah, this is actually when Marge is able to envision Stanley, played by Ned Flanders, but we literally see him morph into Homer on screen. And before, Marge could not get angry enough. This time, she smashes that bottle and almost stabs. Actually, she does stab Flanders with the bottle. And the director's yelling at Flanders, she's supposed to be fighting back.
You're supposed to be overpowering her.
Yeah, you're supposed to be overpowering her. And Flanders replies, I'm trying to.
Yeah, you can see it. Marge starts getting the like right in her eyes, and she actually verbalizes it a little.
She's full on Pitbull at that point. And it's all because she's angry at how she's treated by Homer, and justifiably so up so far. Back at the Simpson home, Marge is getting closer and closer to the night of the opening, so she decides she's going to stay in character during dinner. She uses her New Orleans accent.
Her southern accent.
Her southern accent, you're right. And Lisa decides to help by doing the same. Bart, instead of using a southern accent, though, he actually uses a Cockney accent, though.
I'll do an old Cockney accent. Oh, that sounded Australian.
It did sound Australian.
Why does everyone think I'm a leprechaun?
Even though Marge told him that wouldn't be helpful, he insisted anyway. And as they started having all of their conversations in their accents, Homer actually just kind of started to lose it. And he said he lived in a cuckoo clock.
And that's when he starts complaining about dessert, right?
He does. Marge actually has to go audition with Ned next door. And Homer's like, what about dessert? Marge says, you can pull the lid off your own can of pudding, Homer. And then she storms out. Only Homer tries... and he can't. He pops the tab without opening it. And then I love this line. Probably my favorite line in the whole episode. Oh no, my pudding is trapped forever.
So I can pull off the tab on my own pudding can I? Shows what you know. You know what I like though about this? I think this is another foreshadowing thing because in the song on the monorail, I think it's Wiggum, the ring came off his pudding can. So these are very popular items in Springfield. Take my penknife, my good man. I swear it's Springfield's only choice. There's enough songs in this episode. I'll save that for later.
Well, Homer, once again, being as selfish as possible, goes out yelling at Marge. He knows she's next door, so he's actually screaming up to get Marge's attention to come help with his goddamn pudding. And Marge loses it. She actually ignores him. Ned thinks she's being harsh, but Marge says, no, and how about we rehearse that bottle scene again? Implying that she wants to stab somebody.
Yeah. My book, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, say this moment with Homer in the yard screaming at Marge is done with him as Marlon Brando from Streetcar Named Desire when he's outside the window yelling.
Okay, so, cool.
Again, never seen it, but my book references this exact moment as a direct reference, so.
That's cool. I like that. Homer and Marge are in bed once again, and Homer's playing his Game Boy, but he starts asking a little bit about the play, like, basically, when is it going to be? And Marge is like, what, you're actually going? And he's like, I kind of assumed I had to.
Which you shouldn't have said that, even though it's 120% true.
Yeah, it's not something you say out loud. Marge basically loses it at this point and says, why can't you support me? Why can't you even show any interest in what I do? And Homer straight out tells her because he doesn't want to. He can't fake interest in all of your kooky projects.
What do you mean by kooky?
You know, the painting classes, the first aid, and that Lamaze stuff we did.
Why didn't you tell me you felt this way?
I would never say anything to hurt your feelings. And here's the thing, though, that I always try to keep in the back of my mind, though sometimes it's hard. Homer isn't as much as an asshole as he is an idiot. He really thinks he's doing the right thing. He just doesn't know how selfish and how much of a dick he really is being. But he is still
He's somebody
being
that expresses the way
dick.
he feels over the top.
He has very little filter.
His feelings are always on his sleeves. And in his mouth. And out of his mouth.
That's how we leave the adult Simpsons for now, but back at the daycare, another moment where I thought Miss Sinclair might get shot or stabbed. Shot would be appropriate, as we know, for a future episode.
But
she walks in and she walks right by Maggie and says, "Oh, you poor little dummard." And I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Do you know who you are fucking with? That is Maggie Simpson, ma'am.
Maggie fucking Simpson.
You damn right. I do want to say here, Rich, maybe we are a little bit off on the magical aspect of Maggie. Maybe Maggie is short for MacGyver. And yes, what I am saying is I think that the show MacGyver is about a post-op transsexual genius who's really good with gadgets, and The Simpsons is actually a prequel to that show.
No, she got her pacifier taken away. Maybe that's where her power stems from.
But she straight up goes MacGyver on this shit, dude. She's making tools out of all sorts of cool stuff. She uses a mini blind as a ripcord. She uses a Krusty doll to Simpsons Did It Mission Impossible style. And she uses a hanger and a dart with some line attached as a fucking hang glider. No, that's not right. What's the fucking thing where you... A zip line. Thank you.
But she had to aim the zip line. She had to distribute her weight the correct way because that crusty doll should have fallen with her. This is all stuff a Jedi would know how to do.
Or a physics genius. I'm saying Maggie might be short for MacGyver, but
a physics genius would know that wouldn't work.
Yeah,
MacGyver.
That's a good argument for Magical Maggie right there. I'll give you that one.
Why don't you go watch that shit with Patty and Selma?
A little toy suction dart holds the weight of a baby. I love it. They don't make toys like they did back in the early 90s, Rich.
But she had perfect aim, which is something a Jedi would be able to do, or a wizard, I would assume. I'm still on that train, and I think this was more about her rallying all the other babies behind her. So, you can't give away all your secrets when you don't even have your pacifier. So this is about rallying the troops for a common cause.
And the other babies are actually just trying to keep a calm scene as Miss Sinclair explores. They're trying to make it seem like nothing's going on while Maggie is straight up spying this shit. Like I said, she actually does this great bit where she's crawling through the air ducts and she does the Mission Impossible thing, which that movie doesn't come out for another 4 years, by the way, in 1996.
Simpsons did it.
Simpsons absolutely did it. Grab the keys, get to the locker, get the pacifiers, and save the day. One other just quick little visual gag. We got another From Hell bunny in the pop-up book, just very, very briefly. I actually noticed that on my very first walkthrough, and it was confirmed by none other than Hank Azaria on the director's commentary.
I like the crusty doll that she was hanging from. Hey, kids, I'm flame retardant. It's literally what the doll said.
Then Homer has to come and get Maggie in a very creepy scene in a very random movie reference. This is a shot for shot of the ending of The Birds.
Isn't it great, though?
It is. It's so creepy and great. It's babies instead of birds. It might honestly be scarier than the Hitchcock. It really might. It's really, really well done.
They're all sucking on the pacifiers when he's in there, just making that pacifier noise in unison.
You know me, I'm a big-time horror movie fan. I watch them all, and The Birds, even though it doesn't have anything but these fucking tiny flying animals, still just is, to this day, creepy as fuck to watch, even with some of the questionable effects that they had to use at that time. But
I hate birds, man. They have a sharp object they could peck you with at any time. Fuck birds, man. I watched a video of some guy taking out fishing wire from a pelican. And it literally kept trying to snap the guy's hand while he was trying to open the mouth to get the fishing wire out of it. And I was just like, no, fuck that. I'm not touching that at all. I'm sorry, pelican. You don't want me touching you. That's fine. Just be in pain the rest of your life.
Fair enough. They don't really bother me that bad. I do know other people though that are freaked out by the idea of birds, and I can understand. I mean, especially after seeing that movie and seeing how well they seem to work together. I definitely get a little bit spooked, when you're driving along and, birds are just literally covering everything. All the light poles, all the signs, they're just, all over the place. That I could see being
Let's
creepy.
Be honest, Miles. It's not the movie The Birds that creeps you out about birds. And you said it, terrible special effects.
Birdemic?
I was going to bring up Birdemic. That's the terrifying set of birds. And
Birdemic 2 is coming out. The sequel's on the way.
It's supposed to come out a year or two ago.
Oh, shit.
If you haven't seen the movie Birdemic, it's made within the last few years, and I promise you the movie The Birds has much better special effects.
Oh, by far, for sure.
But go see Birdemic.
Birdemic's great. But it is opening night of Streetcar, and...
Whoa. You didn't even reference, after the Simpsons leave the daycare center, after this Birds reference, you see an Alfred Hitchcock-looking guy walking a dog right past the front of the screen.
Oh, shit. I must have looked down writing notes. I didn't see that at all, and I watched it 3 fucking times.
There's a guy that's walking his dog right outside the daycare, and it's an image of Alfred Hitchcock, basically. It's his profile side, so it's just like in his movies.
That is fucking awesome. That's really cool. Oh, all right. Well, it's the opening night of Streetcar, and John Lovitz, the director, is getting everybody hyped up. They did a great job. They should all be proud of moving on from mere citizens to stage actors. Oh, except for you, Otto. I'll be taking your part. Dang. or what was it? It was Drag. Yeah.
Just before the play starts here, I have the cast list. If anyone's wondering. Marge is playing Blanche, Ned is playing Stanley, Helen Lovejoy is playing Stella, Stanley's wife, the paperboy, Steve, is played by Ep2, Otto was playing Pablo, which got replaced by Llewellyn Sinclair, Mitch is played by Lionel Hutz, who's also filing class action lawsuits on behalf of those who did not get cast in the play. And then the chorus is Chief Wiggum, Jasper, and Herman. If you don't remember Herman, he's the one-armed guy that owns the weapon shop. So, just want to put the cast list out there. Lionel Hutz. Sorry.
They do a really great job here of telling a decent amount of the story of A Streetcar Named Desire through some of their own original songs. One of those songs is a song about Blanche arriving in New Orleans. And this was actually quite controversial. It got a lot of heat on The Simpsons. So here's what happened. Usually, when a new season comes out, they will send the first episode out early to the press so that they can get reviews and get hype for the show. They liked this episode so much that they actually sent this along with Camp Krusty for an early release so that they could get some positive buzz for it. Only, it backfired a little bit because the lyrics were printed by a writer from New Orleans who was offended by how it talks shit about his town, essentially. It became a real big deal because, again, this wasn't actually released to the public, so all people were really seeing was, oh, The Simpsons trash New Orleans. They didn't even mention that it was part of a parody song or anything. They just literally wrote out what was said. So people are getting angry to the point where the mayor actually pulled The Simpsons off of television in New Orleans, as well as Bart Simpson was supposed to be featured in the Mardi Gras parade that year,
Wow.
and that was canceled as well. And the funny part about this whole thing is the entire concept of this song had nothing to do with New Orleans. That just happened to be the setting of this particular play. This whole song was a parody of the opening song in Sweeney Todd, where they talk about how terrible of a town London is. So, it was a lot ado about nothing, but it became quite the ordeal.
So I'm guessing that means that people want to hear the song.
Go for it, man.
Long before the Superdome, where the saints of football play, live a city that the damned call home. Hear their hellish rondelay. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. New Orleans, do-do-do-do-do. Home of pirates, drunks, and whores. New Orleans, do-do-do-do-do. Tacky, overpriced souvenir stores. If you want to go to hell, you should take a trip to the Sodom and Gomorrah of the Mississippi. New Orleans. Stinking, rotten, vomiting, vile New Orleans.
So you can see why New Orleans might be a little bit upset with this.
Crummy, lousy, rancid, and drunk New Orleans.
Like I said, they also go through, they have a bit where Apu actually sings a song about being a newsie who that floozy was trying to hit on when all he wanted to do was collect his money.
Just want my 40 cents for my deliveries last week. Could this bewitching floozy seduce this humble newsie? Oh, what's a paper boy to do? And then Marge kisses him. Woohoo!
Like we mentioned earlier, in the actual play, it's implied that Blanche is raped by Stanley, which makes the last song that they sing even funnier, in my opinion. For what it's worth, Chief Wiggum is actually playing a doctor who ends up dragging Blanche away to a mental hospital. And Blanche says to him, "I don't know who you are, but I've always relied on the kindness of strangers." That is actually a line taken from A Streetcar Named Desire. However, the musical bit that they tack on to the end of it is not, and that is, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met. Which, again, with the rate implications, it's a little bit, it's a little bit off with that ending. Oh, streetcar!
The song that I actually always liked in this one was with Ned yelling Stella, because that's what made you know what Streetcar Named Desire would, that's from it. Except for the obvious musical.
It's like a soliloquy that he sings.
Stella, Stella, you're putting me through hell, Stella, Stella.
The play is a roaring success. It gets a standing ovation from everyone in the audience, except for Homer. Homer looks down. He does not look ecstatic like the rest of the crowd does, and Marge sees him. She sees that he's not up clapping for her, and they have a confrontation in the back. The kids actually say, "Wow, Mom, everybody was standing up and clapping for you," and Marge replied, "Almost everyone."
I like how Bart was like, "I'm Blanche DeBlanc," and he's like pretending to be Blanche.
He's flying around. Oh yeah, that's something to point out too. Bart was really excited whenever Marge's character was harnessed up and was flying. He's like, "Oh wow, I didn't know she could fly," and Lisa had to explain that it represented her descent into madness.
Which, they must have had a lot of money, because I assume this is like a community theater production.
Right?
So they must have had a crap ton of money for the special effects they did.
I guess so. But yeah, Homer and Marge actually have a confrontation. Marge is mad that Homer was so bored he could barely stay awake at the end of the show. And
really keep his head up.
Homer explained he wasn't tired. He was sad. That play really touched him. And even though he struggled to remember Marge's character's name, he clearly paid attention because he said he really felt bad for Blanche, the way Stanley treated her, and that
woman, you played her, you know her name.
Yeah. But then Homer goes on and says, "I don't know, I have a history of missing the point of things." That Marge is actually ecstatic that he actually nailed it. He really did get the point. And then Homer has an almost semi-self-aware moment where he says to Marge, "Oh, I guess I'm kind of like that guy." And Marge says, "Maybe a little."
Which is both, like, sweet for both of them, because Homer has a realization, almost like you said, where maybe there's things that he needs to change, but then Marge is, like, happy, and she's like, well, maybe a little, whereas, like, through the entire episode, she thought it was the same person, and that's what was causing all of her anger, but at the end, after he proves that he was paying attention, she's pulled back where it's just, well, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is kind of
it's
fucked
sweet.
Up in its own
fucked
sense.
Up, it's sweet, it's Simpsons, yeah. It's like I was saying, on this one, I feel like Homer is such a dick and so selfish that just that little bit, just paying attention to the play and actually understanding a fucking plot, like, to me, that isn't quite enough to gain forgiveness, but it works for them. I mean, I think everybody strives in life to find somebody like Marge, or someone to treat them like Marge treats Homer. I mean, she is a queen for sure.
Well, I think a lot of it, too, is not just that he paid attention, it's that he felt it. That's the issue. Is like he was sitting in his chair looking depressed and looking down because he felt it. And to me, he only feels things that are selfish towards him. So I think he already knew in the back of his mind a little bit that he had been doing some similar things that Stanley was doing.
Yeah,
it takes him a while to verbalize it.
It takes him a long time. I honestly don't think he was as aware. I think he was just barely aware. That's why I said it was like a semi-self-aware moment. But either way, I think that it's the traditional Simpsons reset. You know, we got to get Marge and Homer back together and happy before the end of the show. And this one does just in the squeak of time, because literally after Marge says maybe just a little, we fade to black and the credits roll.
You know, I think this is something that'll happen over all the seasons, where the ones where it's the Marge and Homer tension all seem to wrap up pretty quickly.
Very suddenly, yeah.
Like I was thinking, we've done the one where they go catfish hunting.
The marriage retreat, yeah,
we did this one. And I was thinking of another one in the future, and I can't remember what it is now, where everything goes to shit, but then like in the final moments, everything's just all hunky-dory again. It's one we've already seen, like where Marge might go cheat on Homer, but then she drives to the power plant, and Homer knows there's something wrong, and like literally they just go out to the car, and I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that one all starts because Homer buys himself a bowling ball for Marge's birthday. You're
it wraps up very quickly.
All very suddenly, yeah. And I bet you there's going to be a lot more incidences of that, and that's fine. It's what you have to do with such a heavy show. It's a funny show that tackles heavy subjects in 22 minutes, so I give it slack on that one. But that does bring us to the end of A Streetcar Named Marge. Richie, was there anything else that you or that book of yours wanted to point out about this episode?
I'm groovy, baby, but my book did point out, we got the 3 movie references, Streetcar Named Desire, The Birds, and The Great Escape. It wanted to point out that when the guys are taking their shirts off to go for the role of Stanley, Ep2 takes off his shirt to audition for Stanley, revealing he has scars from his bullet wounds, which I missed that. And then, according to the marquee, Oh Streetcar is a one-night-only performance.
Oh my god, and all that money goes into it?
And I guess in general, I did want to say, like, I really like John Lovitz as his character. I know he played two.
This was probably his best work yet on The Simpsons.
Yeah,
something. I wanted to point out one other movie reference that I learned from the director's commentary. At the very end of the play, Homer rips up the playbill, very similar to what is done in Citizen Kane, which is a movie that the Simpsons writers absolutely love to reference. So, just a quick additional movie reference for this already fully packed episode of references. And last but not least, probably my favorite bit of trivia that I've encountered about The Simpsons on any episode so far. During the production of the movie The Score, starring Edward Norton and Marlon Brando, Edward Norton actually brought a copy of this episode to show to Marlon Brando, who played Stanley in the 1951 movie, and Marlon Brando absolutely fucking loved it. They bonded over their love of that episode on the set of The Score, which if you haven't seen The Score, it's an awesome heist movie. It's in addition to those two, it's also got Robert De Niro, so it's a solid movie. A big time Edward Norton fan, so that's how I came across that one, and it's really worth the watch.
That's actually the first rated R movie I snuck into, and I was only like 15 or 16, and nice. I actually didn't think it was all that great, and I love Edward Norton, but that's for a movie.
Oh, really? I actually own that movie.
Is that where he plays like a mentally retarded guy for a while too, or he's pretending to be?
Major spoiler alert there, but yes, he does pretend to be. He does pretend to be a mentally retarded person or mentally challenged person. I've already got in trouble for saying retarded before, so that's fucking retarded. But
if you don't understand why it's okay to say retarded, watch the Rick and Morty quote about it. Send all your complaints to @MrMostDaysOff.
At Red's Riot, please.
I forgot. We have a complaint department.
I have a complaint department, yeah. But other than that, Rich, I think it's time to get out of here. Is there anything that you want to plug this week?
You guys should know by now, but if not, you can follow me on Twitter. I am @thewiz_kid23. While you're on Twitter, go ahead and go over to our show page, which is @bestdarndiddly. That's DIDDLY, and give us a follow on there as well.
I am @MrMostDaysOff on Twitter and Instagram, and I am very excited, not only because this season is just awesome in general, and we have lots of awesome guests lined up to come and talk about these episodes, but specifically next week, Richie, we are talking about arguably the best episode we will have come across so far. I know I don't want to get my expectations too high, but we are going to be reviewing Homer the Heretic.
And remember, New Orleans is full of pirates, drunks, and whores.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.